next step we're going to do is we're going to mount the subwoofer potentiometer. This is from Parts Express. This is a 10K. I can't remember if it's an audio taper or not. They were running low on those. I used some regular, I guess logarithmic or whatever they're called. They both seem to work fine. It's not like something you're fiddling with all the time. It's the subwoofer level, so you basically get it where you want it. And then the main volume controls the subwoofer level and the main volume level at the same time. But this one here happens to have a little pin right there. That won't allow that to sit flush on the board, so that's going to have to be broken off. So basically, it's going to get a pliers, grip it real tight, and comes right off. I guess that's for, I don't even know what that's for centering, helping to prevent it from spinning or something like that in certain components, but we don't need it. So here it is without that. Here's our board, and what we're going to do is this is going to go through this one here. This and this, these were two existing holes in this plate. Okay, so this subwoofer potentiometer is going to sit through this, and you can see the hole is way too big for it, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to use the silicone, fill that gap with silicone, and just try to make it horizontal with the other potentiometer, so that when it's sitting in the speaker, this potentiometer and this potentiometer are going to be horizontal. So we're going to do our best to do that. Also, from the back side, the prongs, the solder tabs are going to be facing up. Remember, in the beginning I said to mark top on the tape there. So if you do that, you'll stay out of trouble. And I'm going from my instruction manual that I designed and worked up, but I'm using it to work this from, to assemble this from, because it's easy to forget what goes where. So I'm using that, my own instructions, to instruct me. But what we're going to do with this is we're going to do two things. We're going to use silicone sealant, and we get in a tube, it's easier to work with. The other thing we need is thread lock. Now you want the blue thread lock, even though I don't know why they did this, but the case is red, it says blue there. The red stuff won't come off. You'll almost wreck it trying to get it off if you ever have to remove it. Just get the blue stuff. It doesn't matter what the container looks like, just look for the word blue. Marketing genius right there. I don't know who thought of that, but so first thing we want to do is kind of get some, I don't know if you can see this, I hope you can see this, I hate to have to redo all this. Get your silicone, put a nice big old blob around the base of this thing. I see a problem. I've got a cured blob of silicone in there, so I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to make sure that it's all soft, gooey silicone that's going in there, so that nothing presses or makes something set improperly. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to put that right through that hole, and what we're going to try to do is, if you can see, we want this to be horizontal with this thing. There's going to be a knob here and a knob here, so it's really nice if you can get that completely centered. Next thing is to put some blue thread lock on the threads, and then put the washer on. In this case there's two of them, just happen to come with two, and I'm going to put them both on because the hole is so much bigger than the shaft. Let's give it a little more strength. And then, well, I don't know if you can see it, just carefully tighten up the shaft of the potentiometer. And it's a little messy, but again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that it's level. I already explained that. I have to keep saying it. So, looks even to me. I'm just going to carefully get my pliers and snug it up. There, and you want to be real careful that you don't scratch the surface. Now I got a bunch of silicone all over the place. Gross. Get you some alcohol. Get you a Q-tip. This should be in your electronics section there. I have this in mine all the time. It's great for cleaning up stuff. And you see all the silicone and blue goop and all that that's And then scoop that up, get that out of the way. Use one side to get it pretty much clean. Dump the other side and alcohol, and go ahead and scrub it, dub it a little bit more, and that'll get all of the junk off. So get another Q-tip even, and I'm not quite fanatical, but I'm really insistent that my aluminum plate that I paid like $11 something for be completely clean and not have a bunch of gunk on it. So that looks pretty good. So we got the first knob installed. Here's what it looks like from the back. The tabs are real easy to mount, and this is in there nice and secure. So good job for that. Alright, the next step is to mount the binding posts. It's 2 sets of binding posts. One set is going to be, assuming this gets mounted in either the left or the right speaker, the bottom set of binding posts will be, since it's lower, will go to the subwoofer. The top set will go either to the left or the right speaker, and the speaker that the amp is mounted in will connect inside the cabinet. But the first thing we want to do is we want to put some heat shrink on these. As you remember, the holes we drilled are plenty big enough for this to go through without touching, but if it touches, you're in trouble. So we're going to err on the side of extra caution, and we're going to put 2 layers of heat shrink on each one of these knobs. Take my little handy dandy lighter and heat shrink that on there. That's good. Heat shrink roasting on a binding post. Now I'm going to put the second layer on. Okay, so that's that. Now they've been sufficiently heat shrinked. Now we're going to mount both binding posts onto this, and it's going to take a fair amount of silicone because, as you know, there's a great big hole there that came with the existing plate that we have to kind of work around. But by the time you get both of the binding posts kind of cover things over it, you won't see the hole. It'll be covered up, and there'll be enough silicone in there where it kind of goops it closed, and there won't be any leaks as far as air is concerned. So that's what we'll do next. Okay, so we're ready to mount the 2 binding posts. So what we're going to do is, we've got them laid out. They just basically, the binding posts just basically sit loose in this in this top plastic panel, and we're just going to set it in there like that. I'm going to take the second one, set it in there exactly the same way, and then basically line it up by eye to where it looks like it should look. And we're going to flip it over to expose the back. We've got the 4 pins, we've got the holes, we got that big thing there. And what we're basically going to do is just put an awful lot of silicone in there. I hope you can see that. So basically that big hole, I'm just going to put an awful lot of silicone right in there. I'm going to go around like this, put it around each one of these, just like that. Move them around so it gets on all sides. I'll show you a picture of this when I'm done. Let me flip this around. So basically, there's a whole just lot of silicone in there, just a whole bunch of it. This here is basically, they're sort of eyeballed where I want them. And then I'll put the back panels on these and snug it in, snug the nuts on just a little bit, and then I'll adjust the front again and make sure that's where I want it. Okay. There's enough silicone in there where everything should match up, should line up really good and be sealed up fine. see that. So they're on there like that. And you want to look, just make sure that everything is lined up about where you want it. And then when you got it pretty close, put the washers on. You can see this. There's a washer for each one. And then put the nuts on. One nut for each. There's one nut. There's actually two nuts for each shaft. The first nut secures the thing, holds it together. The second nut is what you actually use to connect the wire, whatever wire you're going to use. This is an 8mm socket. I'm just going to put on here. I just use this to tighten it. It's easier than using my fingers. Okay, next thing, two things we're going to put on are the on-off switch and the DC input jack, which is how we get power to the unit. This here, if it comes with, you know, sometimes Parts Express changes the part numbers a little bit. One will get discontinued, and they'll carry something else that's basically the same, but there might be little differences. This one has two nuts on it. Yours may not, I don't know, but I'm going to leave the first nut on. I'm going to apply some blue thread lock, and I'm going to spin this first nut on until it's snug. And in order to do this, we're going to do the same thing we've done with the other things. We're going to put a bead of silicone around approximately where the nut and the shaft meet. Not too much, but a healthy amount so that we'll have a little squeeze out and we're sure that there's not going to be leaks. Okay, so just mount that in there. Pretty easy to do. So you got the star washer, then you got the main washer. I'm not exactly sure which one needs to go first, but I don't really think it matters. We're kind of using the blue stuff to glue everything down. So you're going to screw the nut on, and you just sort of want to make sure that the switch is relatively up and down, and the silicone is substantially hooped around to prevent any air leaks. And then the other thing you want to make sure is that the switch and this hole are lined up vertically, just to make it look a little nicer. Then we're going to get our pliers. We're going to very carefully just tighten this up. So basically we're going to install the rest of the components the same way, continuing with this 3.5mm 1/8 inch stereo input jack. Just put some silicone around the base and blue thread lock on the threads and tighten down carefully. Here's a look at the back of the amp board. You can see there's something red on the board. That's red electrical tape. I just use red for contrast. But you want to put that approximately where you see it there in the picture to eliminate any conductivity between the amp board and the amplifier itself. Aside from that, you know, on the bottom right you have the DC power input jack. That just goes in the same way. Of course that sticks in from behind, and then you screw in from the front nut. But basically silicone to seal it and blue thread lock to eliminate anything vibrating loose in the future. And when you're all done fastening everything and you've cleaned up everything with some alcohol and a Q-tip, it basically will look like this. I think the LED is installed in this picture technically, but we don't put the LED in until the very end because the leads on that are very delicate and they really easily get bent and mangled, and so we save that for the very last. But this is basically what it's going to look like when you have all the components installed. Well, that's it for this video. The next video we are going to begin, hopefully finish wiring everything up, and by the end of that we should have a working plate amp that we'll be able to give a little test and demonstrate how it works.